Your performance doesn't fail under pressure. Your access does. If you're already successful, you've built results, credibility, momentum, yet you still notice moments where you don't perform at your best when it matters most. This isn't about discipline, and it's not a skill gap. It's access. You already know what to do. You've studied it, you've executed it before, and you've even taught others. And yet, in certain moments, a high-stakes conversation, a critical decision, an unexpected challenge, you hesitate, you overthink, you react instead of lead. And here's the part most people never hear. There's nothing wrong with you. This isn't a motivation issue. It's not a confidence flaw. And it's not a sign that you've reached your limit. In fact, this pattern is incredibly common among high performers because the higher you operate, the more pressure you're under, and the pressure doesn't reveal who you are. It reveals what you can access at that moment. Same intelligence, same experience, same capabilities, different situation, different internal states, different results. And that tells us something critical. When performance fluctuates, capability isn't disappearing, it's going offline. That's why trying harder doesn't fix it, and why adding more tools doesn't often help. You don't need to become more capable. You need a reliable way to access the capabilities you already have, especially when it matters most. That's what we're going to talk about. I was speaking with a group of senior leaders months ago. Highly capable, well-respected, consistently successful on paper. Smart, articulate, strategic. The kind of team people assume are always confident. But there was one pattern that kept showing up in most meetings. They were sharp, decisive, clear, but in one specific context, executive level conversations where the stakes were high, something changed. Their thinking slowed. They second-guessed decisions they normally made with ease. They'd walk out of the room already knowing what they should have said, and frustrated they hadn't said it. What made it confusing was this. Nothing was missing. They knew the data, they knew the strategy, they knew their role. And yet, in those moments, their performance dropped. Same person, same intelligence, same experience, different internal state. And that's the part most high performers don't get told. When your results fluctuate, it's easy to assume you need more preparation, more confidence, more work on yourself. But in cases like this, capability was never the issue, because the moment the pressure passed, in follow-up emails, one-on-one conversations, even later the same day, their clarity came back. That's not a skill or motivation problem, that's an access problem. And if you've ever found yourself replaying a conversation thinking, why didn't I say that at the moment? I've done that before. Or wondering why your best thinking only shows up after the pressure is gone. You already know this experience. This is what inconsistency actually looks like at a high level. Not failure, not incompetence, but a temporary loss of access to your best internal resources, right when you needed them most. This is where NLP offers a very different way of understanding performance. In NLP, we don't start by asking what's missing. We start by asking what's already there and why isn't it accessible at this moment. There's a core assumption we work from. People already have the resources they need to succeed. And that's important to clarify. That doesn't mean people are always using those resources. It doesn't mean effort isn't required, and it definitely doesn't mean growth isn't necessary. What it means is this. When someone underperforms in a specific context, we don't label it as a lack of ability. We look at the state, because performance is state dependent. The same person can be confident in one room and hesitant in another, focused in one conversation and scattered in the next. That doesn't mean the resource disappeared, it means the access has changed. This reframes the entire problem. If the resource already exists, you don't need to install it. You don't need to fix the person. You need to build a new access, a reliable way to access an internal state where capability is already online. And once you see performance this way, something important shifts. Inconsistency stops being personal, it becomes informational. It's just feedback. a signal that access has dropped, not that you failed. This is why trying harder rarely works, because effort doesn't restore access, state does. And when you learn how to regulate state deliberately, performance becomes repeatable, even under pressure. To understand access, you have to understand what a resource actually is. Confidence is not a personality trait. Focus is not something you are born with. Clarity is not something you either have or don't have. These are states. They are temporary. They are context dependent, and they are driven by neurology and physiology. This is why performance can vary so dramatically without warning. You can be decisive in one meeting and hesitant in the next, calm in one conversation and reactive in another. Nothing about your identity changes in those moments, your state did. When your internal state shifts, different capabilities come online. Your thinking changes, your perception narrows or expands. Your emotional responses accelerate or slow down. And the reverse is also true. When the state collapses, access disappears. This is why pressure is such a powerful amplifier. Pressure doesn't create weakness. It exposes which state you can reliably access and which ones you can't. High performers often misinterpret this. They assume inconsistency means they need more preparation, more confidence, more effort. But in reality, they are already resourced. The issue is that their best states are not yet portable. They work in familiar environments. They work when stakes feel manageable. They work when their nervous system feels safe. But under pressure, when physiology tightens and attention narrows, those states go offline. Once you understand this, the problem stops being mysterious. Performance is no longer about becoming better. It becomes about accessing what is already there, deliberately, consistently, and under pressure. That understanding changes everything. Once you understand that resources are states, a choice becomes visible. Most high achievers are trained to acquire more skills, more tools, more framework, more strategies. This works to a point. Acquiring raises your ceiling, but it does not guarantee performance when the pressure is high, because acquisition does not equal access. You can know exactly what to do and still not do it in the moment that matters. You can have the skill and still not be able to reach it on demand. This is where NLP makes a critical distinction. Growth is not only about adding more, it is about accessing what is already there. Think about it. You've already been confident before. You've already been decisive before. You've already stayed calm under pressure before. Those resources are not hypothetical. They are proven. The question is no longer, how do I get this? The question becomes, what state am I in when this is already available to me? This shift removes a huge amount of unnecessary pressure. You stop chasing a future version of yourself. You stop assuming you are incomplete. You stop treating inconsistency as a personal flaw. Instead, you begin working with precision. You start noticing patterns when access drops, when it returns, when conditions support it, what conditions shut it down. This is the more intelligent form of growth. Not harder, not louder, more accurate. And once you see access as the lever, a second choice becomes available. You can keep trying to fix people, including yourself, or you can learn how to unlock what's already there. That distinction sets up everything that follows. At this point, access stops being theoretical because access is not something you understand your way into. It's something you enter. There are three primary levers NLP works with to restore access in real time. The first is physiology. State always begins in the body. Before you change thinking, interpretation, or behavior, the nervous system is already responding. When pressure rises, the body tightens, breathing becomes shallow, posture collapses, vision narrows, access drops. So the intervention starts here. Straighten your posture, open your chest, slow your breath, letting the exhale extend slightly longer than the inhale. Bring the gaze forward instead of downward. This alone begins to shift the internal state. The second lever is attention. Under pressure, attention turns inward. Self-monitoring increases. Mental noise rises. To restore access, attention must move outward and forward. As a simple question, what outcomes matter most right now? Then ask another, what is the next decision that moves this forward? This redirects the nervous system that threatens the task. The third level lever is the memory patterning. You already have access to your best states before. That matters. Recall a moment when you performed with clarity, control, not the story, the experience. Notice how you were breathing, how you were sitting or standing, what your internal dialogue sounded like. Now allow your body to match that pattern. This is not imagination. It is a neurological reentry. You are not creating a new state. You are restoring access to a familiar one. When these levers are used deliberately, access returns quickly, and with repetition, it becomes reliable. At a certain level, performance stops being about effort. Most people never reach that level. High performers do, and when they do, they discover something important. Consistency is not a personality trait, it is a skill. Specifically, it is the skill of regulating the state under pressure. This is the quiet difference between people who occasionally perform well and those who are trusted in critical moments. They are not more motivated, they are not more confident by nature, they are not immune to pressure. They have simply learned how to stay resourced when it matters. This reframes inconsistency entirely. Instead of interpreting it as failure, high performers treat it as feedback, a signal that accesses what has dropped. Information, not identity. This perspective changes how you lead as well. When you assume people are broken, you manage through pressure and correction. When you assume people are resourced, you lead by designing conditions where access is possible. This is why effective coaching is not about fixing, it's about unlocking. Not about capability, not about forcing change, but restoring access to what already exists. When people experience that for themselves, autonomy increases, confidence stabilizes, performance becomes portable, and perhaps most importantly, trust grows. Others trust you because you are steady. You trust yourself because you know how to return to your best state. This is not talent, that is mastery. As a master practitioner of NLP, I can easily guide a client and help them install a resource anchor to your best states that you can access at any time. This is where everything comes together. The next time you are walking into an important meeting, decision, or conversation, notice the habit. Most people ask themselves if they are ready, if they feel confident, if they are in the right headspace. High performers ask a different question. What state do I need right now? Clarity, calm, decisiveness, presence, and they access it. Then they deliberately move forward. They adjust their physiology before they speak. They direct attention toward the outcome, not the pressure. They re-enter a proven state instead of waiting for motivation. This takes seconds, not minutes. And the more often you access your anchor to your state, the faster access returns. Over time, something shifts. Pressure stops feeling like a threat, becomes a signal to regulate the state. Inconsistency stops feeling personal, it becomes information. And performance becomes repeatable, not dependent on mood or circumstances. This is not about control. It is about choice. You cannot eliminate pressure. You cannot control variable, but you can control access. And when you do, you stop relying on effort to save you. You start relying on precision. That is the advantage most people never have, and the one high performers quietly master. If you're thinking of having a resource anchor installed, reach out. If this way of thinking resonates, watch the presupposition you are in charge of your mind and therefore your results. I've linked it in the description below. It gives structure to what you've just experienced here. As we move through the series, each presupposition builds on the last. Together, they form a strategy, not just ideas, designed to expand your freedom to succeed. Click on the next video and let's keep growing together.